I give the call to the Honourable Peter Foster.
Thank you, President. Let me first offer my congratulations on your election as President of this place. I thank you for your warm welcome, support and encouragement, and I very much look forward to working with and learning from you as I settle into this place. Could I also congratulate the Chair of Committees, the Honourable Martin Aldridge, on his election, and I look forward to working with him as a Deputy Chair of Committees. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we stand today, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. I pay my respects to Elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge First Nations people's continuing connection to land, sea and community. I stand before you all extremely humbled and somewhat nervous, for it is indeed a great honour and a privilege to have been elected as a member to this place as part of the re-elected McGowan Labor Government to represent the mining and pastoral region, a place where I have called home for the past 13 years. Western Australia is a great state and I'm immensely proud and very lucky to call it my home. It is home to ancient culture, dramatic landscapes, burgeoning industries and many great communities. And as the world is still in the grips of the global pandemic, it is also one of the safest places to be, thanks to the leadership of the McGowan Government. I was born 6 days before Christmas in the very late 1970s in a town called Kurri Kurri in New South Wales. Kurri Kurri is situated in the Hunter Valley in the coalfields and was founded to support the nearby collieries. The first miners to the region lived in makeshift accommodation near those collieries and were often away from their families for extended periods. The miners' unions, through local delegates, flagged a need for a town to reunite the families. Their campaign was successful and soon after the town was surveyed and formally gazetted in October 1902. The name of the town, Kurri Kurri, comes from the local Wonnarua people, the traditional owners of the area, meaning the very first or the beginning. Kurri Kurri was a planned town and some believe it to be one of the very first planned towns in New South Wales. I note this fact because of where I live now. Tom Price in the Pilbara is also a planned town, established by the Hamersley Iron in agreement with the state government in the late 1960s to house miners and their families working at the nearby Mount Tom Price mine site. Some of my great-great-grandparents were the early settlers to the town of Kurri Kurri. Like many of their generation, they boarded ships and embarked on a journey of a lifetime from the United Kingdom to find better paying jobs, pursuing the promise of a healthier and prosperous new future in another part of the Commonwealth. Not all of my ancestors were migrants from the UK. I also have migrant connections to Germany and to France through my other great-grandparents. One of my ancestors, Richard Foster, was born in Manchester in 1879 and as a convict was transported on the ship Coromandel in 1819 to Australia. I was born in Kurri Kurri Hospital, another legacy of the miners' unions. Delegates from the nearby collieries had got together to discuss the urgent need for a hospital in town due to the accidents that were regularly occurring at nearby pits and the difficulty in moving those patients for treatment. It was decided that a building fund levy be imposed and a few years later, with a government grant, Kurri Kurri Hospital was built, was opened in 1910 and still stands to this very day. The hospital has a special place in the hearts of Kurri Kurri locals, myself included, and it is because of this hospital that I got my first experience in activism. In the early 1990s, the Greiner government was trying to close our hospital, and I joined with hundreds of protesters in July 1991 to march down Lang Street. Brandishing placards and chanting, we made our way to Rotary Park for the rally where inspiring speeches were shared. I was only 11 years of age at the time. Due to the town's efforts, our hospital was saved. Hospitals are important to regional communities, and I want to acknowledge the work of the McGowan Government in supporting our regional hospitals, especially during the global pandemic, right across the mining and pastoral region. The construction of the nearby Newman Hospital continues. Planning is underway for a new hospital in Tom Price and for a new health service in Meekatharra, as well as investments into our country paramedics and the rollout of the COVID vaccine, supporting jobs, health delivery and opportunity in our regions. I am the eldest of 6, with 3 brothers and 2 sisters. I feel very lucky to have grown up in such a big and busy household, juggling responsibilities and schooling. Being the eldest, I was expected to step up and I had my fair share of chores around the home. Dad worked 5.5 days a week as a tyre fitter, later becoming an assistant manager to support us all. Mum stayed at home with us children, organising the household and volunteering at school and times at the canteen. Money was tight, but we never went without, and I enjoyed our family holidays to Port Macquarie and to Sunshine with my grandma and granddad. We were happy, healthy, and we had each other. I am proud to be the son of a working class family. Both my parents come from large families as well, and so I was incredibly lucky as a child to visit great-grandparents, grandparents, uncles and aunties and many cousins. There was always a christening or a party being held, and us cousins would spend hours chasing and teasing one another. There was always a backyard cricket match, which I, not the very sporty type, would always try and avoid. Family is very important to me. It is through family that we learn our values, how to treat others, how to view ourselves and those around us, and discover our purpose in life. I acknowledge my mum and dad who are here today, and I also acknowledge my grandma Foster, my nana and pop Marion, all who could unfortunately not be here today due to ill health, all who I love very much and where I have learnt my values and where I get my strength. My parents tell me as a child I was not shy. I was noisy, loud and always competed with others to be the centre of attention at parties, including at my mum's 21st where I attempted to steal the show. Growing up with my mother has taught me that we should treat each other with respect and that everyone should be treated both equally and fairly. This was reinforced during the marriage equality debate. As someone who has happily been in a same-sex relationship for 18 years, the debate and subsequent plebiscite was of great importance to me. At times, listening to political commentators and leaders talk down my relationship as simply a lifestyle choice, that marriage equality contrasted deeply with their personal religious views, or worse comments, it took its emotional toll on me at times. So, as children do, I would call my mum to vent. My mum would remind me that it does not matter who you love, that she loves all her children equally and their choice of partners equally, and that everyone should treat everyone equally, including in marriage and in law. Equality and fairness are, and will be, a priority for me here in this place. Growing up with my father taught me that we should always stop and help others, that we should always look out for each other, because one day we may very well need someone to stop and help us when in need. Often when we were kids, Dad would stop and help a fellow broken down driver on the side of the road, sometimes changing a tyre, sometimes looking under the hood or giving friendly advice. I have strong memories of my dad always being busy, volunteering for sporting groups or helping family and neighbours in need, in addition to his long hours at the tyre shop. Once as a teenager, driving home from a night out on the town with friends, my car broke down. Here I was, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, no mobile phone reception, I was stuck. Fortunately, after a short period of time, a vehicle stopped and the driver offered me a lift home. Someone had stopped to help me. This episode reinforced to me my dad's words, and I think it is fair to say that my father's examples have also shaped me into the person that I have become as well. We do have an obligation to each other, especially family. We are all in this together, and we should never leave anyone behind. I believe this is why the core values of the Labor Party have always resonated with me, the light on the hill. As chiefly said of Labor in 1949, a movement bringing something better to the people, a better standards of living, greater happiness to the mass of people. We have a great objective, the light on the hill, which we aim to reach by working for the betterment of mankind, not only here, but anywhere we may give a helping hand. If it were not for that, the Labor movement would not be worth fighting for. This is why I would later join the Union and the Labor Party. My strong Labor values of working together, helping others and leaving no one behind were passed on to me by my family and also my hometown. As a child, I attended Kurri Kurri Public School. Dare I add another legacy of the miners' unions, and later Kurri Kurri High School, where I was awarded ducks. My school years were fascinating, yet challenging. I was a bright child, however, I was bullied. My voice sounded different. I liked to study, and I preferred to have my head in a book rather than kicking a ball around in the playground. So, this made me a target amongst my peers. Most of my schooling days were spent looking over my shoulder, forever vigilant, and due to this I developed anxiety, for which I have learned to live with to this day ever since. At school, I would spend lunchtimes hiding in the library. I would change the route I walked home from school each day to avoid the bullies. I share this with you not to elicit sympathy, but to highlight to you that programs that support safer schools and inclusive education are so important to children who are different. And I know that I will speak out in this place to support our children being safe, especially those questioning their identity. I acknowledge our brave colleagues in both this place and in the other who have spoken up about their own personal mental health journeys. Everyone's journey is different, and we should always check in with each other, ask if they are okay, and lend a listening ear. I join with my colleagues in acknowledging the investments made by the McGowan Government into mental health initiatives across our regions, including the very recent announcement of an additional $14.5 million in funding agreements and contract extensions to over 150 eligible community and mental health services. At the end of high school, I came out to my friends, then to my mum and dad, and then to my extended family. I was one of the lucky ones with lots of love and support to guide me forward on every adventure. Following high school, I attended the University of Newcastle, where I obtained a Bachelor of Arts degree, majoring in classics and politics. I really enjoyed my time at university. It encouraged me to develop independent thoughts, expand my horizons, encouraged debate, and challenged me to look at the world differently. While studying, I worked a range of retail jobs on a casual basis, including in fast food, shoes, and menswear. I was not in a retail union at the time, but looking back, perhaps I should have been. Inconsistent hours, varying conditions, and underpayments were commonplace. Management would always remind you, you are lucky to have a job, so don't complain and don't ask questions. Studying full-time and working part-time, I relied on the income of these part-time jobs to get by, especially the penalty rates, and whilst I was grateful to be employed and to be paid, I knew nothing about my rights at work, or even what award I was paid under, and it contributed to an already heightened level of stress while studying. I want to acknowledge the work of our Australian Union movement in highlighting the importance of and fighting to protect penalty rates, which make a huge difference to the take-home pay of the lowest paid workers in Australia, which is largely made up of women and younger workers. Following university, my first full-time job was working in a call centre for Qantas. Thankfully, the pay there was much better. After this, I joined the public service, and this is where I have continued to work for almost 20 years before my election to this place. I am, and will always be, a proud public servant. My first role was with Centrelink, taking calls in a call centre, before I pursued an opportunity to work in Maroubra. Working for Centrelink was intense work most days, but also extremely rewarding. My role was to interview new claimants and assess their claims. dealing with people at often their lowest moments in life, struggling to make ends meet for a variety of reasons, including job loss, addictions, or fleeing family violence. I took pride in my work, often working back late, and I believe this is where my passion for serving community grew, as I could see myself trying to make a difference. I ended up working for Centrelink for 5 years, holding a variety of roles, and this is where I joined my first union, the Community Public Sector Union. And I want to acknowledge their work as well in standing up to the staffing cuts of successive coalition governments. Following my time at Centrelink, I worked for the Child Support Agency as a financial investigator, and following that for Medicare Australia, where I was a branch manager. After working in Sydney for a few years, I met my partner Sam, and I followed him down to Wollongong. After moving in together, we purchased our first home. We were paying off the mortgage, credit cards, and with endless cost of living pressures, money was tight. So, like my ancestors before me, and on the encouragement from family, we packed up our possessions and we travelled west to find a better life. When we first arrived in the west, my first memory was of the Pilbara heat, which I would later learn to love. I remember stepping off the plane at Paraburdoo and thinking that I had inadvertently stepped into a blast furnace. It was a very warm 45 degrees. As we drove into Tom Price, I was taken aback by the beauty of the place. It is truly an oasis in the desert. Northwest mining towns are transient, and as such, many are reluctant to get involved in community. Many come with 5-year plans, maybe start a family, pick up a few skills, make some money, and then leave again. At first, we were no different, but as the months passed, and after many conversations with locals, my love for the Tom Price community grew, and so did my desire to make the town much better. Working in customer service for the Transport Department, I had daily conversations with clients about local issues. Concerns about the availability of childcare, the road to Karratha was still not sealed, the hospital was getting old, sporting and community facilities were outdated and no longer fit for purpose. Growing increasingly frustrated with the Shire, I decided to challenge myself by running for council in 2009. On the first occasion, I was unsuccessful. Undeterred and knowing that I could make the community better, I got more involved, joining the Tom Price Youth Support Association, Tom Price Tidy Towns, and the Nameless Jundamana Festival Committee, and volunteered much of my spare time each week. Volunteers are so important in our regional towns, and the mining and pastoral region is no different. Volunteers run our sporting and community groups, run countless fundraisers, giving many hours of personal time. Through volunteering, I learnt much about myself, made many new friends, and it helped to combat my anxiety. National Volunteers Week was celebrated recently, and I believe it is important for all of us to recognise and thank the volunteers for the vital role they play in our communities, such as the State Emergency Services and St John's Ambulance volunteers, who put in long hours in often exceedingly difficult circumstances to save lives. I want to make special mention of the Tom Price SES, Tom Price St John's Ambulance and Tom Price Bushfire Brigades, all who do an amazing job across the inland Pilbara, from gorge rescues to land searches to responding to car crashes and fighting the many bushfires caused by lightning strikes during the wet season. In early 2011, I joined with Councillor Cecilia Fernandez to run a petition to bring attention to seal the remainder of the road between Tom Price and Karratha. This was a priority for us locals, many of whom travelled to Karratha regularly to access medical services, sporting games or shopping. It was not a priority at the time for local government or the state government, and we strongly believe it needed to be. In just 2 short days, we had gathered almost 1,000 signatures, to which we gave the former member for the Pilbara, Tom Stevens, to lodge on our behalf in State Parliament. I was determined to champion change in our town. In late 2011, I ran for council for the second time, and this time I was successful, securing over 50% of the vote amongst 3 candidates. I had the privilege of serving as an elected member with the Shire of Ashburton for 9.5 years, being re-elected twice in 2015 and 2019. As a councillor with the Shire of Ashburton, I chaired various committees, including the Audit and Risk, and represented the region on the Pilbara Regional Council, WA Local Government Association State Council, as well as numerous regional and intrastate forums. I'm incredibly grateful for the experience to serve within local government. It gave me a platform to expand my public speaking skills, negotiating and debating skills, and I met and engaged with many stakeholders. I enjoyed presiding over the many Australian citizenship ceremonies and welcoming new residents to town. We must have strong local governments to ensure that the success and longevity of our regional towns. Local governments do so much more than rates, rubbish and roads. They work to fill the gaps by providing essential services including health, early years and education, environmental and welfare, to name a few. I want to acknowledge the work done by the previous Local Government Minister, David Templeman, in strengthening the sector and measures taken to reform the Local Government Act. I look forward to working with the new Local Government Minister, John Carey, to share my experiences to help strengthen the sector further. I was recently asked in an interview what was my biggest achievement on council, and I said, staying true to my commitment of being the community's strong voice, by always listening and responding to concerns, by encouraging council to invest in community facilities, including the new Tom Price Childcare Centre, which will bring relief for working families, and by championing major projects to the state government, such as the Maniwarra Red Dog Highway and the Tom Price Hospital redevelopment. I would like to thank and acknowledge the work of the McGowan Government and the Transport Minister, Rita Safiotti, for their work in further sealing the Maniwarra Red Dog Highway. This project means so much to both the Shire of Ashburton and the City of Karratha, supporting local jobs, helping to grow tourism and business, and improving accessibility to the inland Pilbara towns. I have also served on 2 independent school boards as chair and can attest that we have some great schools in the inland Pilbara. Committed principals, teaching and support staff, as well as an engaged school community supported by local government and the resource industry. I was sad to resign from local government earlier this year, but I know that I will continue to listen and be a strong voice for the Ashburton community in this place. Earlier this year, I also resigned from my job with the Department of Communities and Child Protection as a case support officer, a role which I held for 3 years. Working with families and supporting case managers was extremely rewarding, and I want to acknowledge my former colleagues across the Pilbara district who work in often challenging circumstances to keep children safe. To strengthen families, to protect children, we need a robust child protection system that supports both families and carers, including our valued grandparents, as well as the staff who administer the system. And I also look forward to working with the Department of Communities Minister, Simone McGurk, to also share my experiences to help strengthen the sector. The mining pastoral region is vast, stretching over 2,201,000 square kilometres, with over 150,000 people calling it home, extending from the Goldfields and Kalgoorlie in the south, to the Murchison, to the Gascoyne and Carnarvon in the west, to the Pilbara, to the Broome, Derby and Kununurra in the Kimberley to the north. There are 27 local government areas within the electorate, including the Shire of East Pilbara, which is the largest local government area in Australia. I look forward to engaging with every local government and understanding their aspirations and concerns. The mining and pastoral region is home to robust resource industries which drive the economy of our state, including oil, gas, iron ore and gold. With over 19,000 local people employed in the mining industry, it is our region's largest employer. Jobs are important to our region, with many others employed in construction, tourism and accommodation services, manufacturing, transport and farming. Jobs have been a focus of the McGowan government. The Premier, as part of the WA Labor's re-election campaign, made WA jobs a key priority. And this resonated strongly in my region, with a commitment to work with resource companies to reduce the reliance of interstate FIFO, to build infrastructure using local workers and local content, by freezing TAFE fees to upskill WA workers, and by investing in manufacturing. The mining and pastoral region is home to much beauty and tradition, including that found at Kalbarri National Park, Karajini National Park, Murrujuga National Park, and the Dampier Peninsula, to name a few. The mining and pastoral region has its fair share of challenges: attracting workers for agriculture, construction and tourism, land availability to address housing and business demands, and tackling antisocial behaviour and family violence in our communities. Our First Nations people have been living in the mining and pastoral region for many thousands of years, and we must respect their continuing connection to country, the cultural significance of country, and take the time to listen to their stories, their wisdom and their aspirations. First Nations people should always be consulted on what happens on country, and this I wholeheartedly support. I want to acknowledge and thank the voters of the mining and pastoral region for the opportunity to serve in this place and be their representative, including those who told me at the polling place that they were voting Labor for the very first time. Thank you to the leadership of the McGowan Government for keeping our state safe during the pandemic and the strong focus on WA jobs. Thank you to the WA Labor Party, in particular State Secretary Tim Picton and Assistant State Secretary Ellie Whittaker, for running our strong campaigns. Thank you to the Carnarvon, Karratha, Newman, South Hedland and Broome Labor branches who supported my nomination and volunteered in our campaigns. Thank you also to Rainbow Labor for your encouragement and support over the years. As one of the only few LGBTQI parliamentarians, I know that this brings additional responsibilities, and I hope to do you proud. Thank you to the Australian Metal Workers Union, who welcomed me some years ago with a shared vision of creating good-paying jobs and opportunity for all. Manufacturing jobs are vitally important to our state's future, supporting Australian-made. Thank you to State Secretary Steve McCartney and organisers Alex Cassie and Renee Portland for your wise words and your counsel. Thank you to the members of this place for their support and encouragement and guidance over the years, including the Honourable Stephen Dawson and the Honourable Kyle McGinn, who I have the privilege of working with to represent the mining and pastoral region with the Honourable Rosetta Sahana. Thank you to our lower house candidates, Davina Diana, member for Kimberley, Kevin Michelle, member for Pilbara, Cherise Sibasato, our candidate in North West Central, and Ali Kent, member for Kalgoorlie, for your strong and outstanding campaigns. I had the privilege of working closely with both Cherie and the member for Pilbara during their campaigns, and I thank them both for the opportunity to be involved, including making phone calls and door knocks to listen to and understand some of the major challenges faced in our region. I would like to acknowledge and thank the towns of Tom Price, Paraburdoo, Panawanika and Onslow, who also supported me on council and in our campaigns. I would like to thank my dear friends, Torrin Peel, Michelle Lewis, Kira and Chris Hannon, Deb and Nudge Walker, Audra and Jason Smith, Mel Farmer, Amanda Yeomans and Jared and Kieran Nicholson for everything that you did to support the campaigns, as well as the personal encouragements that you gave me every single day. Thank you to my mum and my dad for their love, wise words and encouragement, for being positive role models and for travelling from Sydney to Perth, their first ever plane flight, to support me here this week. I love you both.
Wow.
Lastly, certainly not least, to our son Roman and to my partner Sam, for putting up with my endless conversations about politics, for supporting me when I was away on the road campaigning or down here in Perth, helping me on polling places, helping me letterbox streets, helping me put up call flutes, but most importantly, for being there when I needed you. Sam, thank you for always believing in me. The McGowan Government has a strong mandate for following the convincing state election result to govern Western Australia, and I am enormously proud to be part of it, to represent the mining and pastoral region and to be a voice for the inland Pilbara, where I proudly call home. I'm looking forward to the work ahead of the next 4 years, working towards fairness and equality, advocating to make our regional communities even stronger, whether it be in building tourism industry, supporting job creation or improving community amenity. And I will always stay true to my Labor values. Thank you.